I'm Danny Hicks. Welcome to the Not So Secret Agent podcast, where we learn from top real estate agents how they maintain a thriving business, all while living the good life. Dustin, Brohm, welcome to the show. You are the host of the Massive Agent podcast and a fellow colleague at Real Brokerage. So excited to have you on the show. Thanks for doing it.
Of course, brother. Yeah, happy to be here. Especially about that last part that we're now at Real Broker. It's still so new to me. I've only been here a month, but man, it feels good. And it's just yeah, I'm happy as hell. So happy as hell to be on the show too, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say it still takes me a minute to remember how to answer my phone because it's that new. I'm with you. I think we came over the same week from EXP, and I'm still going at Real Brokerage. Just catching it. Anyway, so let's get right into it because I know we don't have a ton of time, and I have so many things to ask you because I'm a fan of you and your show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so not a problem at all there. Tell me a little bit about how you got started in real estate.
So I got started because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad as I was in this really low point in my life, and my mom got Rich Dad Poor Dad from the library and told me to read it. I didn't know anything about it, never heard of it, but the word rich was on the cover, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Because I was broke at the time. I was in my early 20s, like early 20s, I think, and yeah, something like that. And read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it opened my eyes to entrepreneurship. Right, I didn't have entrepreneurs in my life. I knew that other people owned businesses and worked for themselves, so to speak, but I didn't know. Danny, I thought they were just different people. I really did. I don't know how else to explain it, but I thought they were different types of people. And so I didn't think that was in the cards for me until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I learned about going into business for yourself, being an entrepreneur, specifically in real estate and specifically with real estate investing. So I got into this because I dove in, I did some education around real estate investment. I went to the local real estate investor association, and the president happened to be a broker, and he's flipped 400 homes or 500 homes or something. And he was the man in that investor association. So I went to him and I was like, hey, I want to be a successful investor. What should I do? He's like, you should go get your license because it lets you do A, B, and C. I'm like, cool. Don't I need a brokerage? He's like, yeah, just join mine. So I did because it was cheap. And I got in thinking that I was just going to be the flipper guy. And it wasn't until that didn't go so well. And we got some really bad advice from an agent who was advising us on after repair value and whatnot on the flip that we did. I was working with my parents at the time on this flip. Horrible advice. We had no profit margin whatsoever. We ended up having to keep it as a rental, which eventually turned out to be a blessing because we were cash flowing about $600 a month on one door, which was ridiculous. So that was great. But I'm like, I need to get, I need my own license, right? And I've got to have control over this. So I get my license, join that guy's brokerage, and thinking I'm just going to wholesale and make 50 grand a month like I saw on A&E, because that's it only takes 30 minutes for them on A&E to do it. I'll do that. Realized it wasn't that easy. We screwed up the flip, and one of the guys in that office, I'm gonna have to go back and really think about how this started, but I got referred a buyer and they wanted to buy a short sale. And so after months and months and months of the whole short sale bullshit back in the day, there was an actual paycheck at the end. So
you're like,
I knew I liked it. I liked opening, touring houses with them and making offers. I was like, this is cool. Cause I felt busy. I felt like I was actually in business for the first time in my life. And then when there was an actual paycheck, and I think it was $1,400 is what I made after some splits and everything, I was like, okay, there's an actual paycheck here. This is amazing. And so then I leaned into being an agent representing buyers and sellers from that point forward.
That's interesting because I also jumped into this to flip. I still have that first house.
Nice.
It cash flows
so
nicely.
You didn't flip it.
I did not. It did not flip. Yeah. and since then I've gone on and had a lot of other ones. I kind of keep that one to remind me to not be too big for my britches. Um, yeah, but I think that's a funny story because I think a lot of us got into that going, we'll be investors. This is easy because that's what they have on the TV and the books
Yeah.
and all the things.
I, I sure as shit didn't start out to be a realtor,
No,
but
and then later you learn that and you're like, oh, okay, I got this. This is great.
exactly. Yeah.
So what'd you do before real estate? So before you read the Rich Dad Poor Dad.
I was working at I was working at the detail bay of a car wash. I was doing construction, like handyman type shit. I was working at call centers. I was a debt collector, which is crazy because I had debt collectors calling me, but I was one. And
You're like, Bob, is that you, Bob? You recognize the
seriously,
guy at your. Oh, I got to call B.
seriously,
That sucks.
yeah, my phone rings during my shift from the guy 3 cubicles down.
Right.
Um, I was just working a bunch of dead end dude jobs that, 18, 19, 20-year old was working with no real aspirations for shit. Because I literally didn't know it was possible. So I was just working, stuff like that, trading time for money because I didn't know any
Mm-hmm.
better. You lose me.
Yep. So what does your business look like now? So you've come a little ways from that brokerage. You've jumped a couple times and kind of turned this thing into a business. So what does that look like? Who's on your team? What is the structure? All those good things.
Well, it's completely different. So 4 or 5 years ago, I transitioned out of personally selling homes and being the solo agent realtor guy to, wanting to build leverage for myself
Mm-hmm.
because so I'll explain what my business looks like today, but I think it's important to explain why I'm doing it this way. As I was starting to figure stuff out as an agent and selling some houses and getting the marketing figured out and finally attracting some clients, I got busy, which is what I thought I wanted,
Yeah.
right? Well, what comes along with being busy? Well, time that you're working, that you're away from your wife and kids and, um,
Life.
right. And usually that's, Saturdays, Sundays,
Mm-hmm.
evenings when people are off work. And so I really started to get worn down by having to text my wife and be like, "Hey, look, good news. They want to write an offer, but I'm going to be another hour and a half and, sorry, can't be there for dinner."
Yeah. Don't know
And
when I'm going to be home. Don't have any idea. Just know I'm going to be
exactly.
late.
Exactly. And that started to wear on me, but I didn't know that there was any other way. I just knew it wasn't my favorite part of the business. I just tolerated it. I thought that was the only option. And, then I started to learn about real estate teams because I saw all these red and white signs all over Salt Lake City in the mid 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed they had more than one person on them, right? They showed the photos of everybody crossing their arms, right? And
Right.
it was more than one person crossing their arms. And I'm like, what is this? Like, there's a bunch of people. Like, what is this team thing? And I dug into it a little bit, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's like owning your own brokerage inside a brokerage without needing to be a broker, like just by like building a team. And I'm like, wait a minute, maybe that's how I can build leverage for myself. And so I don't have to be the one selling all the houses all the time, but we're still selling houses. And so I went into it thinking I'm gonna start a sales team. I'm gonna join Keller Williams because they were the ones with all the teams at the time.
Right.
And as I started looking into that, I had a friend, Shannon Milligan, in Richmond, Virginia, someone and
Very well.
mutual friend of ours.
That's actually
And
a
we
business
met
partner
on
of mine.
Snapchat years prior, uh, which is crazy, but amazing woman. But she was leaving Keller Williams, and I told her I was looking at it, and she's like, "Well, what do you like about it? Why would you join Keller Williams?" And I explained what I liked, and she's like, "Well, I'm looking at this EXP thing. Have you ever heard of EXP?" And I'm like, "Is that the company with like the worst logo ever?"
It's really
And
bad.
yeah, and it was. I mean, the logo now is dramatically better than it used to be with this weird bubbly box X thing, and that's all I knew about it. And so she explained, you may actually want to look into this EXP thing if you like those things about Keller Williams. So I'm like, okay. And as I start to dig in, I'm like, this sounds pretty awesome. Like, this is everything I want. This is better. So I joined with her and joined EXP. And through that, met someone named Clayton Gitz. And I didn't know him prior, never heard the name prior, but he quickly became a mentor of mine because I saw the lifestyle that he was living as a team leader, but he was a
Hmm.
team owner, right? He was working 3, 4, 5 hours a month, but he had this giant real estate team and he was spending the rest of his time helping us agents to build a business. And this was like, okay, I want to be like Clayton and have this giant team. Until I learned about revenue share, until I learned how that business model works and what it
Hmm.
allows possible. So I now had a choice. I could do a traditional sales team, or I could partner with agents all around the country in more of a coach, mentor, business partner type role and just pour into them and help them build sales teams and help them build businesses and help them be entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
And I decided that would be best for me because I just, where I was at the time, I didn't want to manage people. I didn't want to, plus, I wasn't that great of an agent myself, anyways. And so I had a lot of limiting beliefs on whether or not I could lead other agents in a sales team capacity. And I just didn't feel like I was there yet. So I leaned heavily into partnering with and becoming business partners and growth partners with agents all over the place. And so that I was still selling houses while partnering with agents and sharing with them how to get leads, how I was getting business, how I was growing, what I was doing, staying in my lane of marketing, lead gen, and social media. And I learned pretty quickly that I could get out of production if I chose to based on that model. And so I went all in on it, got myself out of production 4 or 5 years ago, and ever since have just been pouring into agents. So my business now is completely different. I don't personally sell homes. I have a referral model with local agents. So if I get
Hmm.
business, I refer it out. And then the revenue share model allows me to partner with agents everywhere. And when they're successful, I get a small portion of the company's split. And that creates another business arm for me. So I spend all day, every day, talking with real estate agents, helping them to be and act like entrepreneurs.
Yeah, which is a mind shift, right? Like that's a different way to think of it. It's not, I owe, so off to work I go. It's a lot more of like we own the job as opposed to it, being a job that owns us. I mean,
A
I've
thousand
told
percent.
told many people that tell a, especially now, realtors make too much. I'm like, no, it's a golden handcuff, man. They're selling their time. It's definitely we're well paid, but we are definitely earning every penny of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. The shitty agents make too much, right? But the
That's
good
true.
ones are dramatically underpaid, right?
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
any profession.
yeah, I was gonna say it's a wide spectrum for sure. So, what are you pouring into your agents now? What are you teaching your agents and how to generate leads and find business and all that good stuff? What does that look like right
So there's really three components of what I teach and coach on. And it's all a byproduct of the personal journey that I went through, right? So I had to learn through a lot of struggle for years how to get my own business. And I learned about attraction marketing, content creation, social media. I started through blogging, writing real estate articles in hopes of being found in Google searches and getting clients that way. And then I learned, okay, well, if I create this great article, now I have to get people to know about it. So I have to promote it.
now? Right.
Creating it's one step, then you have to promote it. And I learned about social media and Facebook ads and all that. And through that process, I I really dug into personal development and mindset reprogramming and some NLP stuff because I had a lot of work to do on myself. I still do, of course, but that was all part of my journey. So I had to learn how to get my own business through attraction marketing and social media. I had to become a person capable of doing the type of business that I wanted to, and through that, I was thinking and acting like an entrepreneur in how I was structuring everything. Right. So the way that I've structured my business may make someone who's listening may make them cringe. They may be like, how could you ever get out of sales? Sales is the best. Well, I didn't feel that way,
Right.
right? To me, the lifestyle of having freedom and no ceiling on my income and being able to live vicariously through the success of others, for me, was perfect. For me being the key phrase there. And
Hmm.
so all of that together is really what I work with agents on. We work on mindset reprogramming. We work on upgrading your thinking, becoming the type of person who's capable of hitting the income level you want to hit. We talk about business structure, how to be an entrepreneur, not just own your own job, like you said so perfectly earlier, how to actually build a business that you could step away from if you chose to, and then also, how to get business, how to actually use social media as a tool to get business, because all agents, not all, most agents use social media, but most agents do it pretty poorly, right? And
Yeah.
through screwing up, through doing it poorly, I learned what poor looks like and then what actually works. So I spend a lot of time just talking about the foundation there of like, you've got to find out who you're marketing to before you can market, before you can actually speak to someone. Who the hell are you speaking to? What do they need? What do they want?
Hmm.
And then how can you deliver it in a way that is attractive to them and interesting to them and gets their attention as they're scrolling, and hacking what works on social in a way that actually gets you business versus just getting some views on a bunch of bullshit. So there's quite a bit that I talk about on a regular basis,
Hmm.
but like I said, it's a byproduct of the journey that I went on and what I've already learned myself.
But that's interesting. So I've always said, we're all doing the same thing. We're doing different techniques. The fundamentals are the same, right?
Yes.
If you're doing working by referral system, it's calls, notes, and Popeyes. What you're doing is communicating with people voice to voice on that phone call. What you're suggesting is doing a little bit more on social media, a little bit more video, a little bit more, and being able to reach more people, with that same time. So basically, leveraging time, being able to do that, and then being intentional to give your client, in your case, your client may be a little bit different than, an average agent who's looking for a home buyer or home seller. You're looking for an agent, right? Is that correct? Right?
Now I am. Yeah. Now my
Yeah.
audience is you and other agents for sure. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So, but you're still, what you're teaching could still be useful for somebody who's not looking to get out of production. Figuring out what your
Yep.
client, right? What your target, who your target is, what they need to hear, what's going to be helpful, what's going to add value, right? Because I think a lot of agents, especially with social media, you know, I can think of a ton of them that have been very popular, and they're almost making fun of being a realtor and showing how bad
Right.
it could be, and that doesn't really add value. Like, yes, people laugh and look at it and whatever, but is that adding value to who they're reaching? Like, I don't think it is. What do you
No.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you're spot on. This goes back to knowing who your audience is. Who do you want to hire you? Who are you speaking to? Right? Like when
Mm-hmm.
you started this podcast, you had to identify who the podcast is for,
Mm-hmm.
right? This podcast is not for, a homeowner thinking about selling their house in
Mm-hmm.
Richmond. It's
Good.
not. It's for agents, right? So you have to identify that first. And when I see agents go to social media and just do real estate industry memes and jokes and trends and shit, like that's great. You get other realtors to, haha, that's funny, and you may get views. But do what you want other agents to hire you? Like what? Sure, I know there's value if you do it really, really well. You could get referrals from
Right.
agents that know that you are the Richmond, Virginia agent. Referrals are always a possibility,
Sure.
but you can turn off the people that you're trying to get to follow you. Right? You want people to follow you so you can be front of mind, and so when you create videos, it shows up in their news feed, and you can alienate those people if you start talking to a completely different audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? For example, like just to simplify it, if I if I if I was trying to get dentists to hire me, if I was like a consultant for dentists, and then I started to create a bunch of content about dogs, or about traveling to Switzerland because I thought
Right.
it would get views, and it would, how's that going to help me get dentists to hire me as a business consultant? It's not. But this is what agents spend time doing by creating shit for other agents instead of for the people they actually want to hire them. You've got to know who your audience is. It's
Hmm.
specifically, not just here's where I screwed up, Danny. When I got into real estate 13 years ago, despite a mentor of mine telling me I need to find a farm area, like one neighborhood, one subdivision, right? Like one area that I could focus all my efforts on. Despite that advice, I had too much scarcity thinking. I thought, well, okay, if that neighborhood has 200 houses, for example, that's not enough. Like I want to sell more houses, so I need to talk to all of Salt Lake City. And
Right.
so I just became like, if you're a buyer or a seller, or you're relocating to, or you're moving from Salt Lake City, I'm your guy. And I learned because that was my scarcity thinking that got me to do that. And I realized that doesn't work.
Right.
I I learned it doesn't work, man. And there's so much power in focusing all your efforts in one small area. I know I got off track a little bit, but it was just a huge mistake that I made early on by not focusing on my ideal clients. It was just anyone who's buying, anyone who's selling, military, first time, luxury, like I'll do it all. But when you try to
Right.
be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anyone, right? You're nothing to nobody because you just don't stand out.
I
And
mean, that's
and so yeah, I'll wrap a bow on this real quick. When you identify who you want to work with, drill down deep, not just home buyers and sellers in the entire city, but are they first time? Is it the
hmm
luxury? Is it VA? Do you want to help veterans? Do you want to help people specifically relocate to your area? Do you want to work with move up buyers? Do you want to work with investors? And then what do those investors do for a living? Right? Like maybe they're full time investors, maybe they're passive investors and they're doctors. Like if you can define exactly what your ideal client looks like physically actually looks like, what do they
hmm
do, what interests them, what do they do for fun, where do they live, all that stuff, you can then create content that's actually going to appeal to those people. And there's so many more of those people than we think because we have scarcity thinking.
Yeah, and then because back to your original, how do I provide something for everyone? Like what we're looking for is we're literally looking for a way to customization, right? We're looking for, I mean, there's nothing worse than when you get like a postcard from a realtor and you are a realtor and you're like, hey, kind of drop the ball on this one because I'm clearly not going to hire you. Just one example that comes to mind. Like when they're dropping things on you that you're like, this is totally, you know, automated corporate BS, and you didn't realize who I was, or you send me a message, how is your stay going at a hotel that I checked out of a week ago? Like, you know, that's what that feels like. Whereas if you drill down to that, like you're saying, here's my target audience, here's my target, what they're looking for, here's who they are, here's where they hang out. You can drill down and you can be the guy and you can get those people to react correctly to you because you're targeting them and you tend to be them, right? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to know a lot
And
more
they
about that.
yes, and they because they believe you're speaking directly to them,
Yeah.
right? They think you're speaking directly to them. The more niche down you can get, someone in their 30s, single, relocating to the area, has been renting. This would be their first home purchase. Like if Navy, right, that they're Navy or they're Marines or whatever, right? You know exactly who they are. It makes it so much easier to speak to that person. And then when they see it, they're like, wait, this is made just for me. I'm going to listen. And then they're going to dive into more of your stuff as long as you stay focused.
Mhm.
But if you create stuff for anyone, uh, I learned this through Facebook ads, right? Another version of this
Mhm.
conversation. When I was doing Facebook ads, I learned that if you run an ad, click here for homes for sale in Salt Lake City. you're going to get some clicks. But homes for sale in Salt Lake City, that's not, especially now. You could find that literally anywhere.
Yes.
There's a trillion different websites where you can find a list of all homes for sale. So I learned to niche down in my Facebook ad offerings. So I learned to say stuff like, click here to see homes with a swimming pool and a 2-car garage on the east side.
Mm-hmm.
And then when people see that in their newsfeed, they're like, like, okay, I need to click this because that's what I'm looking for. And they feel like they can't get it elsewhere because it's so specific.
Well, it's a
Right.
curated list, right? I don't.
Yes.
We're like swimming in information and starving for wisdom, right? Same thing. Like every house feed comes to me in the MLS, every single one, right? Which is that's a whole nother soapbox. But anyway, like if I go to Zillow, I've got all these houses, but I want you to just curate it down to the ones I'm interested in. And so like
Yes.
how do we do that? We do that by, taking inventory, knowing it. And in our case, if we're looking for people we haven't met yet, we get to pick and choose who they are, as opposed to doing it the other way where it's like my client came to me and now I do a curated list for him every morning, which I do for my buyers. I know what you're looking for. We've already had our buyer intake. I've asked all the questions. I've asked why when you told me 3-bedroom and I got down to one of them's an office space, so I know that you can use a basement room, all those things. I know what it is, and I'm sending you that curated list while I'm working with you. And you're suggesting doing that before we even meet and already being the expert in one category.
Yes. Ideally, yeah. Yeah. And if this was Zoom, I'd be clicking the clapping reaction for you right there. Cause that was so spot on. I was looking for it. I was like, wait, this isn't Zoom. Um, dude, exactly right. Right. If you identify who your clients are, then you know what type of homes or what areas they would want to be in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If it's if you're moms, for example, soccer moms, if you're a soccer mom and you're trying to market to other soccer moms, busy life, have 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, whatever. Well, you're not going to advertise to soccer moms with a bunch of kids with a list of condos,
No.
you know? Like they're not buying condos. They don't have enough space. So you talk about single family homes with a certain square footage, a backyard, fenced in yard, right? A garage space, parks nearby. Like, where those people are drawn to. So then you just put it in front of them. Because if you know who you're marketing to, the marketing
Mm-hmm.
becomes easy.
Yeah, just getting and the more specific the better. Because you're
Yes.
not the learning curve's not going to be there. When you bump into them at the cocktail party, you're not going to say, let me speak really generally and then I'll get back to you once I look everything up. Because everybody can look everything up right now. You're going to know it. You're going to be like, yeah, here are the 3 listings in this neighborhood because I know this neighborhood and I studied it, previously.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's an important point. Let's focus on that for 10 seconds. No one needs you to find a house anymore,
Mm-mm.
right? There's so much more that they do need you for, but finding a house they don't need you for. You could be helpful and you may actually find the house for them, especially if it's like an off-market property or a pocket listing or something like that. But they can find everything online. So understand that, and you have to sell yourself to them as being so much more than just here's some houses.
Well, especially now, because I've had clients who've come to me and said, the I like to ask, when they're moving on from another agent, I like to ask, what did they do good and what did they do bad? And they'll
Mm.
say, well, I found my own house, and I'm like, well, you knew what you were looking for. They probably didn't ask the right questions, that sort of thing. You're also in your own needs 24/7 as a buyer, right? Like at 5 a.m., you're getting up and you're checking the feed to see if you see what you see. I'm checking for how many clients are we working with at a time? I usually carry 10 to 12 buyers all at once. And those are the active buyers, not the ones that are like, if you find the perfect house, call me, that's a whole other thing. But I think we need to be better on our buyers brokerage agreements. We need to say, hey, sign this paper. This means that we're going to be like, I literally add a note at the bottom in additional terms that our goal to move is then. This is how quickly we want to move. I want to know when you hired me and when we're passively looking. And I have tiers where I'm like, all right, this is passively looking. This is you're telling me that if I find the perfect thing, or maybe in the next 2 to 3 years I'll be interested. Cool. I'm not going to waste my every morning bugging you. I'm going to check in periodically, and I need to educate you on like when we're shifting that. You tell me when I'm going hard at this, because otherwise you're eventually just going to stop answering my phone call because you're like, I'm not ready to move yet. I know what he's going to say, but when you're ready, like the joke I like, and the saying is, the difference between a secret admirer and a stalker is how into it they are, right?
Yeah.
So if you're really into like getting moved in 30 days, you want me to call you every day with that, and going back to the same thing, that goes down to that specific thing, just informing them of the process, informing them of what we're going to do and what that looks like. And you're right. The only thing that we can do short of us selling our value and telling them all the things that go into a transaction is open the door. In their mind, we show them houses, we open the door, and that's our value on the buyer side. And that's our fault for not educating them, right?
Yeah.
Not telling them of all the pitfalls, to not telling them about the inspection and how you need to protect yourself. Because if they can agree to these repairs, but if they don't do those repairs, we have to not close, and then they're going to hold our deposit, and there's a whole process to that. And knowing what we're looking at, and having the knowledge. I almost had a deal blow up over a window sash, and I was like, all you got to do is take that sash to Budget Glass. It's $50. Like, but the other agent didn't know that. But there's a lot. I guess my whole soapbox, and I'm rambling. My apologies. Is that there is so much more value aside from showing them the house, and we need to take that onus off of ourselves and say, hey, we're in this together. You are, of course, going to be looking for your own home. You know what you're looking for, and then going from there. Does that make sense?
1,000%. And it starts with not taking for granted what you know that you offer, right? And assuming everyone knows that you'll do that for them. Because when I was really struggling in the business, I was horrible at future pacing and telling people, hey, once we find a house and you get it under contract, well, once you buy it, what if there's a pipe in the basement that bursts within the first 6 months? What if the AC goes out because it's hot as shit? What if what I'm going to do on your behalf with this offer is I'm going to negotiate a home warranty for you. I'm going to ask the seller pay for it out of their proceeds, and this will cover you for the first year on all this stuff that could go wrong with the house, and I'll do that on your behalf. But most agents will just like check the home warranty box on the purchase contract and be like, oh, by the way, I got you a home warranty. They're like, cool, what the fuck is that? You know?
Yeah.
So don't take for granted. Here's the thing. This is a reminder that every agent needs to hear. If the client was so savvy and knew so much and knew everything involved in the process, why the hell would they hire you?
Yeah.
Why would they need you? If they knew everything you knew, why the fuck would they need you? So take a step back and realize you have to lay it all out for them. As a buyer, like, hey, by working with me, I'm going to actually help you find great financing. We work with a lot of great, reputable, super efficient, and inexpensive lenders all across the area, people that I refer my family members to, and I will gladly help you find the best financing to minimize your fees and interest rate and make this house the most affordable. We'll help you do that with the relationships we have. Well, buyers are like, that's awesome. That's one more thing off my plate.
Right.
But how many agents even mention that's value add? That's a huge value add. You're going to help them find great, advantageous financing. Tell them up front you're going to do it. And as you start to stack all of this stuff that you're going to do on their behalf, they're going to think, where do I sign? Oh my God, I want all of these things. This is going to make my life so much easier versus just doing it for them and not telling them. Because if you're not telling them, they don't know. They're not real estate agents.
Yeah. I have found myself doing this, and I'm guilty of this. I fix a lot of problems without saying anything, right?
Mm.
You know what I mean? We take punches for our clients. Like,
There's a balance there too, right?
sure, but I
Yeah.
mean, letting them know, you know what I mean? Like, there's a mix there, to your point,
Yes.
where we fix it, but they should know what's going on, and they should know that, like, it didn't magically happen. You went to bat, and you went and told that listing agent what was going on, and play by play. I like to tell them after it's already fixed. But
I like that. I like that because the balance is like you want it to be stress free for
right,
them. You want
yes,
it to be as low stress as possible. So you don't want to add a bunch of crap. So that's why I love how you said after you've solved the problem or after you have a solution to it,
hmm
that's when you bring it up and be like, by the way, this came up. This was a potential issue. Here's how we're going to overcome it, or here's how I squashed it. And then they're like, cool. Because then they're like, I would never even would have known about that, Danny. Thank God. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that for us. And
right,
you're not throwing a bunch of stress on their plate
right,
because
and
it's
that.
already been solved.
But I do think we need to do a better job of telling them how the sausage was made a little bit, because
A thousand
when
percent.
when the flight is so smooth, they go, shit, I'll just fly myself. This is great. Like I don't need, you know what I mean? Whereas
A
when you're like,
thousand
no, there
percent.
was turbulence. We went 3 miles out of our way, but then we accelerated on the way back and caught up, and we're good. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like we need to let
Right.
them know what's going on there.
You know what I've found is that when you're able to share and educate the client on just all the shit that had to be overcome in a way that's not adding a bunch of stress to them
hmm
unnecessarily, they appreciate you more.
Yeah.
They value your service more. And guess what happens? The clients who were up to date on all the shit or the deals that you had that just had a bunch of crap to overcome and then you had solutions and you ultimately helped them close on that house, they appreciate you more, they value you more, and you get more referrals from the hard deals.
Yeah.
You get more referrals from the
Definitely.
hard deals than if it's just so freaking easy.
So going back to our mutual friend Shannon Milligan, who by the way is my business partner, uh, Shannon,
I'm sorry to
what
hear that,
Shannon
Danny.
does
I'm,
really,
I'm just kidding.
really, no, no, I know, she's a lot of fun.
Love you, Shanny.
Yeah, no, but what she does is she'll jump on social media every day and she will literally tell the entire world and she does it after the transaction's closed and the results are in, but she's really good about communicating issues that came up and what it looked like and everything that's going on and how it was repaired. And I think that's really kind of one of the cool things she does. She is way more into talking to her phone than I am, like social media. But
She's one of the best
she
when
is.
it comes to, and she does it on Facebook. She's
Yep.
one of the best agents I've ever seen at just getting real about what's going on in her life, what's on her mind, what's
hmm
happening in society. She's great at starting conversations and educating like on the transactions. This was the hardest thing ever. Here's how we overcame it.
hmm
That just builds trust. It builds credibility. It builds likability. It builds connection. It builds all these things, and that's why she does the business she does.
Yeah, I like to tease her that people want an autograph, like my autograph, because I know her. You know what I mean? Like that's how popular she is. But yeah, no, she does a really good job of communicating that value. I think that's really cool. Uh,
No doubt.
so let's. I know we're running out of time, but I want to get into a couple more things with you before I let you go. How does the podcast thing come in? Right. So you're targeting your audience, you're figuring it out, and your target for your podcast, like mine, is agents. Uh, how do you get started on that journey?
Great question. So I started the pod January 2018, so just over 6 years ago.
hmm
And at that time, 6 years ago, I was just starting to build an audience of other real estate agents from Snapchat, and that's where I was just sharing some of the marketing and lead gen stuff that I had just figured out. Right,
hmm
I learned the power of just turning around and speaking to the people that you're just one step ahead of, and that's all I was doing at the time. And so I started to grow this audience of real estate agents and make some great connections. But I was still personally producing. I was still also, servicing buyers and sellers. And the podcast was two things for me. So I realized even years before that I'm a marketer who sells homes. I'm
hmm
not a realtor that tolerates marketing every once in a while. I love social media. I love lead gen. I love like all the nerdy analytics and shit, which is weird because like I'm so a visionary and not like an integrator type personality. But I love analytics and seeing what's working, what's not. Um, I because I wanted to do all the marketing things, having a podcast was one of those big marketing things. And
Right.
I'm like, I'm a marketer. I want to do all these things, right? And the podcast, um, I got inspired to do it on New Year's Day 2018 by listening to another podcast talking about the power of podcasting and how long you can get someone to listen to you every single week. Like the keeping attention, which is such a huge thing for building an audience, building credibility. And I knew that the podcast could help me reach more agents. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
for agents, of course, but I thought this will check that box because I want to do all the marketing things. It'll help me get referrals if I'm known as the agent in Salt Lake City. And I started to get some referrals from it for sure. But I also knew that I was transitioning out of personal production into this, agent first business model that I was doing. And the podcast was just I didn't realize at the time how powerful it would become after 6 years of every single week publishing an episode. But I thought it could at least get me some referrals and it would scratch that itch
Right.
of doing a podcast, right? At the time, it was nothing more than that. And then I realized it was catching on and opened some doors. And I was nominated for some Inman Awards and started getting messages from people that I helped in one way or another. I inspired
Mm-hmm.
them or I helped them or they learned something that they didn't know before. And I started to hear from these people and I was like, holy shit, this is powerful. But it certainly didn't start that way. It was hoping I'd get referrals.
Yeah. Uh, Maybe there's some truth here. Uh, by the way, my dad's gonna love you being on the show because our audience is my parents, pretty much. No, I'm just kidding.
Love it.
Yeah,
They'll
mom's a little
they'll love
tougher
my
though.
language, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh no, they're fine.
Yeah.
Very very cool. What's your favorite quote from an event? As we wrap this up, because I know you have another appointment after this.
Favorite quote from an event.
Any event doesn't have to be favorite quote. Period.
Okay, so this is on the okay, so speaking of events, big decisions are made at big events.
There it is.
Big
I like
decisions
it.
are made at big events. I'm a huge believer in investing back into your business by going to trainings, having coaches, going to masterminds, attending summits and conferences and events and everything. When you do that, like I look back at every single time I've traveled to do some sort of event and invested my time and
Mm-hmm.
invested my money to do it. And there's always something great that comes from it, right? Sometimes you don't notice it right away, but later on, maybe 3 years later, you're like, oh shit, I met that person at that event. And now that person is becoming a business partner or that person referred somebody or whatever, right? Or I learned a certain thing that didn't make sense then. And then 2 years later, like, wait, I remember, oh my gosh, it just clicked for me finally because I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
ready for it then, so I also get, like most people, you get super inspired at big events. And when you're in those moments, you can make some pretty big decisions about the direction that you want to go. And I've made some pretty big, bold decisions at events. And I've seen other agents do the same thing. So I'm a huge proponent of building through events. I mean, just to build your real estate business, to get more buyers and seller clients, you build through events by
Mm-hmm.
educating yourself. And more importantly than that, like what you learn at an event is great. Right? That's awesome. That's not why I go to events. I've learned that sometimes by sitting next to somebody in the or you're in line for coffee before session 2 starts and you just start shooting the shit with them and
Yes.
you realize they run a large team doing 300 million in sales and you're just like, I'm just a solo agent trying to sell a house a month. This person's just like me,
Yeah.
right? This person's just like me. And all of a sudden you get belief that you can build something bigger by being in rooms like that. That is to me, the most
Yeah.
powerful thing about events.
Yeah. This show is literally based off of conversations we had at conferences. Like literally on our way to the airport, standing in the coffee line, shoulder to shoulder with some of the biggest salespeople in the industry, and they're literally sharing for no reason, just because you're next to them and you have something in common, and you're both putting it out there, and you both want to learn, and they recognize that, and they were in your seat at one point,
That's
and
right.
right, and then taking that and sharing it. The other awesome thing about podcasting, which you probably also know about because clearly, is I don't have to take notes on this conversation, right? I get to go back and listen to it. I got to ask the questions I wanted to ask. And then I got to hear your answer, not only hear it, but I got to record it and how you said it. Right. And so you can
Well
go
said.
back and dissect that so much and get so much out of it. And I've even had episodes where I got something out of it when we were talking, and then I went back and listened to it because I had to go and do show notes and all, or whatever I was doing. And I was like, crap, I didn't even catch that. That was that awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I just learned a whole nother thing that I didn't even realize. And then for other
Oh,
people to get
yeah,
anything out of it, I think is amazing. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I do my podcast for so many selfish reasons. Not only those reasons, right? But
sure.
so much of it is who I want to talk to, who I want to learn from, who I want to network with. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. My reasons are mostly selfish. And then if somebody else gets something out of it, that's amazing also. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. That has to be part of it, of course. That's a
yes,
given.
right.
But yeah, there's so many great upsides. So many great upsides on a personal level.
For sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for doing your show because I am one of the people who listen to your show and I really
Thanks,
enjoy
man.
it. And thank you for doing this, man. You're
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah.
So,
I'm glad you asked.
tell the audience where they can reach you and how they can, all the good things, how they can give you referrals, all that stuff.
Thanks, man. So the Massive Agent Podcast, wherever fine podcasts are sold, wherever you listen, I'm there. Massive Agent Podcast, and then Massive Agent on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram. All my socials are Massive Agent. YouTube channel, Massive Agent. The nice thing about being a digital marketer is I'm very easy to find online. If you search my name or Massive Agent, you'll find me. So, if you heard me on this show, connect with me, shoot me a message on Instagram. Let me know that you heard me here. I'd love to meet you and connect with you. And if there's anything I can do to be helpful, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for doing this.
Absolutely, man. I had fun.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to apply this information to your business immediately. This message will not self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, agents.